Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to welcome you today to our fourth podcast episode of today's Top Tech Leaders. The goal of this podcast is to share insights and knowledge of top CTOs and product leaders on their leadership and what they've learned throughout their journey. We'll cover management tips and tricks, organizational structures, tools, and best practices on how to successfully lead your product team. Our goal is to bring valuable insights to CTOs and CPOs of all seniority. I myself am Marc Clemens. I'm the founder of CodeControl and 9am. And for today's podcast, it's a pleasure to welcome Alessandro Pedori. Welcome, Alessandro.
Oh, hi. Thank you.
Alessandro has over 20 years of experience in computer engineering, specializing in language, technologies, and AI. His weapon of choice is Python, and he primarily works on any Unix-like systems with open source tools. In addition to his technical skills, Alessandro has a passion about coaching and teaching on a wide range of topics, including NLP. That's how we got to know each other back in the day, programming, soft skills for programmers, and communication. Alessandro is also the co-founder of a therapy and coaching company, the IFS Collective. So nice to have us with us.
Thank you.
So before we get started, for everyone that's listening in, can you say a bit about yourself, where you're from, what you're working on at the moment? Give us a bit of background.
Okay. I'm originally from Italy, where, stranger enough, I'm now. But I spent 17 years in Berlin, where I moved away 1 year ago, and I've been involuntarily nomadic since, trying to land somewhere, either probably Portugal or Spain. But still, so far hasn't worked very well. So and in this moment, I'm in Italy, kind of blocked by a flood. I was trying to leave. Let's see. I have a degree in computer engineering, and I always loved languages. And years ago, I ended up in web development. Got really burnt by what I consider ugly languages, PHP, among the rest, and JavaScript in the 2000s. Now it's much better at the time. And took a longer break, moved to Berlin for completely different things, and then I got back into engineering and programming, first from languages, and fell in love with Python. And in 2012, I got a chance to work as a contractor on Siri for locally in Italian. I realized that NLP was becoming, both AI and NLP was becoming something that you could use in a product instead of what I studied at engineering school. It was just terrible. They were expert systems. I still think they're terrible. And Prolog, that is a cool language, I just wouldn't use it for AI. And so in the last 10, 11 years, I've been mostly working in the field with some breaks. I even tried to be a data engineer to discover that that's not my passion. I can do that. And so at the moment I'm working, I'm both contracting, consulting, and coaching, and facilitating. And in the specific environment of AI and programming, I'm involved in a couple of beginning projects with the technology behind ChatGPT. And since ChatGPT came on the scene, the technology was already there, but the way it came up from the end of November was really kind of confusing. It took me a few months to regroup and see, okay, what are we bringing? Is this thing smarter than us? Do we still need programmers? And the last couple of months, yes, we need programmers. It's smart, but very stupid in very interesting ways. And I'm using it as a tool, so I'm having a lot of fun and still finding ways in which to use it for teaching and learning, and still triangulating how it works to test people. I don't know if you had the problem in CodeControl, but you can't give a programming test to anyone, because you just have to type it in ChatGPT and it will solve the programming test. So you need to test engineers in a different way that I love, but I'm still trying to find out what do we want people to know once the rote knowledge can be done very quickly. So I'm a couple of project about this, using AI for some level of coaching and knowledge, accessing knowledge, and still trying to understand which one of my NLP skills are completely useless. Every couple of years you end up 90% of what took me a lot of time to learn is useless, but 10% now is incredibly worthy. And they're okay, now which what part are useless, what part are so
Yeah.
it has been an interesting transition. Now I'm involved in a few projects and possibly one business creation. It's still not clear if it's a
Nice.
project or a business.
Nice. Yeah, really interesting because I think you mentioned it. It's AI has been around for so long, and everyone put it on their website and their pitch decks. But suddenly we have after ChatGPT an application that seems to change everything, and everyone is really talking about it. Everyone seems to really build things with it. So is it for you also a complete change in your perspective on AI and what it will bring?
Uh, I mean, I think like a lot of other people, I managed to be a bit sidetracked by the level of apparent intelligence that GPT 3.5 and GPT-4 has, and the way in which, I mean, I was used to the one shot and it being a bit fuzzy, and the fine tuning on instruction following has been really interesting. So, I mean, for me, the interesting thing is we went. I mean, I was working doing NLP, natural language processing, and the machine learning, and then yeah, we can call it AI, but it's not. It's a bit dumb. And now we are at the point where I mean, the old Star Trek where people talk with the computer. It's like, computer, do this for me. No, not that. Not correct. No, this is wrong. The computer, oh, sorry. I
Mm,
will try this way. Oh, I will try this. Like, you can do this. So the way in which actually it's possible to have a conversation is interesting. The way when I'm consulting for startups and for companies, it really became in a lot of cases when, I mean, I have a patent proposal for something I developed less than 2 years ago, and I was even telling when they propose a patent, the company, I mean, like, guys, I think that in 6 months, 1 year, this will be obsolete, and there is a lot of very fancy algorithms that now
mm,
you just describe the problem and give some examples to GPT 3.5, and it will do it for you 95% of the time. So I'm
mm,
even using it as a tool for when I'm consulting companies, like, okay, guys, try to prepare the data set from that and then maybe fine tune, or it's called knowledge distillation, like grab the knowledge from only the topic you want and then train a model from that. So it's changing. I mean, even using these tools as a stepping stone and realizing where they get confused, how to, I mean, what is
mm.
programmed with this tool. And it's so it changes. I mean, just the fact that, I mean, now it's much more on the horizon. I mean, my partner used to work in tech. She's a therapist mainly now. And she knows I mean, she understands what I'm doing. And when I say, I mean, I used to have for a couple of years in one of my funny CV, like my job is to try to tell what was the wording? Quite primitive AIs what to do, and sometimes they even obey me, and it's becoming really much. It really feels like training as you would train a pet. Like, okay, do this, not that. This. Oh, that's good, good. And it feels like. Yeah, I find it
Yeah.
fascinating when people ask me about the society direction, like above my pay grade. I can tell you how to implement things. What are the limits now? What maybe will happen in 2 months, maybe.
Mm.
It's for sure a fascinating time to be in this field. And I never
And
thought I would spend, I don't know, a few hours a day reading scientific papers and having to read the papers published 2 weeks ago to catch up
yeah.
with my field. Like,
Yeah, it's crazy. I think you mentioned two parts. One is obviously the preset of the training. So suddenly you have something that has been trained with so much data, but you obviously also don't know what data it has and what data it doesn't have. When does it invent stuff and when not? And the other thing is the context, which makes it super interesting because you can communicate and get better results. But at the same time, when you look from a traditional product point of view, I see it with us when we do something you don't get the perfect result with the first shot, but you need to really do a discovery on understanding where does it lay, where it's not. So it's a completely different way of taking a model, training, trying to get the best result, and retraining. Now you have something that is already there, and you need to
yeah, I
work
mean,
together.
you have to work together, or the other something. I mean, what is called in context learning. So you give the model some examples what they want it to do, and that is and then kind of like focusing. Okay, well, this is a topic where we are working. it is, yeah, I mean, it's a different way of working with these tools and even finding their limitations. And then, I mean, going back to what, I mean, generally, above all, when you want to have it predictable, you want to extract the logic and re-implement it with more predictable tools. And it's still, I mean, when I look around, we're still learning how to use, I mean, things like Copilot and code generation models and chatting and asking for new things. I mean, I'm using it a lot to find new libraries when I'm coding because it knows about libraries and APIs. And then, I mean, once I explain it what to do, it should, oh, well, I can do it like that. And then I can try my things. Like, okay. So it's a really fascinating tool for exploration. And we're still finding out. I mean, the tech is moving very fast and in interesting ways.
And what does it mean for tech management? I mean, does it change the way that you create a product? Do you expect now or would you expect product managers to do more discovery themselves, find out what can be done with, let's say, ChatGPT, and then afterwards go to the product team and say, or development team, hey, let's go deeper into it, or does it have a direct impact when it comes to developing products?
I mean, that what has been happening for me. I mean, already when you are with AI and you're trying, I mean, even the technology from 2 years ago, like wow, or three, like 2020, it was already okay. We think this works, but we have to try it. And now it's even more okay. What are the capabilities? And yet it also allows non. I mean, you in a discussion from a coaching bot some time ago, my first thing was like, okay, try to see yourself if ChatGPT can do it, or the first thing I did, and then I started doing it. Okay, then now use LangChain and let's use some programming tools to make it. But the idea is like if you're alive, you can test a lot of things and get to okay, it's 80% doable. I mean, you can get with this technology a hang of is it too much to ask, or is it at the level in which you can ask and the non-technological people can experiment a bit with it? My impression that they get, how to say, they can hit edges that they don't see because they don't think that this is still a piece of weird code. But yeah, I mean, it becomes more and more explorative. That for me, it has been, I mean, it's both bites me and I love, I mean, I work as a translator. I also work in coaching. I love also the analog part of life. So I like, I mean, working with NLP, you are used to working with something that is fuzzy. I mean, words have a meaning that is actually evolving and contextual. So you accept the fact that, I mean, now I have a bot that works great 90 to 95% of the time, and 5% of the time fails gracefully, and 5% just goes off the rail. And trying to catch that is between fascinating and frustrating. But yeah, it's much more of an explorative. It feels much more organic. Like okay, you can start. Right? The problem I'm still getting there because I haven't been. I mean, I haven't used this technology for long enough to have a proper pipeline. The testing, regression testing, formalizing different tests. I mean, I've been looking for a few platforms. I haven't really, but you know, we tend to have experience. You try something and then you build on top of that, and then you build more. But getting to formalized tests the way we do when we do data science, it's maybe someone listening to this podcast is like, oh wow, he's so ignorant. Doesn't he know blah? I've been trying to follow quite closely. I don't have anything that was okay. This is clearly what we need to do. So, I mean, even just the fact that if you want to check, I mean, recently I was reading there to see if a chatbot replies the right way. You can't check if it's exactly the right answer because it can be the right context. So there, I mean, I've seen some people using what's called the ELO rating that is from chess. So how many times it wins or loses against things. So maybe using GPT-4 as a golden standard or a human as a golden standard, and how much the answer is better or worse than that. But it's tricky to find when it goes when it makes a mistake without involving humans. Then you're like, okay, was it okay or not? That is more or less what we are doing now to fine tune this
Mhm.
model. So it's
Yeah, and I think, and we come, I think, especially from tech, we come from a perspective where we want to be able to put one thing in and get the right result out. And what we see, at least in our own development, whenever we use GPT, is we start building several layers. So we do the first prompt, and then we get something back, and then we say, well, if this and this happened, then let's do an extra prompt, and then we try to check it against others and try to imitate a conversation where we would, for certain cases, automatically ask another thing, which is also limited, but at the same time, it can help us using this very
I mean,
conversational like
just as
concept.
the key question, are you using the ChatGPT interface or are you using the API from
No, the
OpenAI?
API.
Okay, but
API.
then because in my experience, in that case, you can put the temperature as low as possible, 0, and giving it examples. I mean, what you describe is what, after a bit of banging my head against the problem, I realized that, oh yeah, but that's what you do as a programmer. You split the problem in actionable steps,
Chunks.
if then
Yeah.
else, and then you make so you don't ask 3 steps to a GPT model. You
Yeah.
ask 1 step, and you check that step is
Seems right.
then you ask the next one based on that. So it's becoming like there is still a level of programming, and
Yeah.
it's, I mean, yeah, if you asked me 2 months ago, I would have been completely like, oh my god. But the last 2 projects are like, oh yeah, I know what I mean, it feels like this feels like different kind of programming, but it's still coding. But yeah, there is this weird way of it. I mean, it feels like dealing with a hyper smart child or an hyper smart animal that
Yeah.
every now and then goes and does its thing. Like, okay. And for
And I
manage,
think,
yeah, sorry.
yeah, sorry, but you yourself, I think I remember you speak also a ton of languages. This must help, no? To understand that there's always a context. And um,
I mean, yeah, I speak a bunch of language. I'm not sure this understand it because it's, I mean, I find that the fact that this thing speaks language can be a bit of a red herring, because it communicates in language, but it's not human. It doesn't build. I mean, even if you use the API to make it remember a conversation, you have to send to every prompt back the conversation or the pieces you want. If it's too long, you will have to extract information that clearly also humans do, right? I mean, I don't remember exactly what we. I mean, I have a vague idea of what we said 10 minutes ago. I have a vague idea of the path of the conversation. So for me, on the psychological level, it's fascinating because there are something, oh, okay, this is merely also what I'm doing. Like, I have a basic level of intelligence, and I have some shorted memory, and I can access, and then I check the context. Like, okay, I'm talking with my partner, I speak differently than when I talk with a client. But I lost, speaking of which, I've lost what I was. Oh yeah, they don't have a word model, so I mean, sometimes they will mess up in a complete. I mean, it came to me. I mean, I read it a few times. So like, they seem like a very smart, bullshitting high school student. Sorry for the word.
Yeah. No, but I agree, right? So we had this case. So we asked Bart on 9 a.m. on our new product, and
Mhm.
like the first 60% were fantastic, and the next 40% is what we would wish for the future. It's like it's like
Yeah.
500,000 freelancers on the platform in 10 countries, and I don't know. So it was really crazy that, and it was so convincing that I was reading it like, oh wow, oh no, it's not us. It's like, we're not that big yet.
Okay, and then like, well, okay, that's a direction. Good. Yeah, but even just for, I mean, for coding, I mean, I'm using it for coding, but it won't remember. I mean, for me, there is, I mean, the reason I use bullshitting and is that, I mean, it looks surface good, but I mean, for me, when I'm coding or when I'm solving a problem, when I'm building a product, I need somehow to build in my head the shape of what it will be. And then the technology is kind of secondary. I mean, okay, there are things that are easier or not, but it is what it needs to do. While GPT for now, it's amazing at the surface technology and using the API, and if we can speak or write all of the computer languages that I don't. And yet, the inner shape of what this and the business logic and what exactly this thing should do, it seems difficult, but then again, it's difficult for most humans. So that for me,
Mm.
going back to the management part is also finding a way to testing coworker or employee on this when you want to bring them in, because they writing nice words, as you notice by now, is easy, and even getting with very, knowing rote thing is easy. So it's been fascinating. I wish I had answers. I find
No.
I'm getting safer. Like, okay, for the next few years, I think my job is still safe. I don't, but apart from that, um, my first experience with ChatGPT was I was teaching for a design school in Sweden, programming, or I was supporting with the programming module. And a student had a problem. It took me 20 minutes to debug and find where the bug was and just show them, oh, this is what you could do. And then I tried to copy and paste his code on ChatGPT and say, like, there is a bug. How do you fix it? 20 seconds it was done. And I was a bit like, okay, so okay, good. Then now, what's my role here? And now 6 months later, I'm like, okay. First, I do that. I will ask ChatGPT first, and then let's see what next. So it took me a moment to find a way to use this tool.
Mm. Yeah, I think it takes a bit of behavioral change, and this perhaps also for the management part. Um,
Mhm.
for my, I'm trying to actively really change my behavior. I even wrote a poem to my wife about our holiday using ChatGPT. So I'm trying to do anything I can. First ChatGPT and give it a run, and also play as much as possible with it, so that
Mhm.
I change my own behavior. Um, and I just guess that in management, this also means that, especially in tech leadership, you need to make sure that developers become even more product managers, or become even more thinking about solutions and why are they doing it, and then looking into how can GPT or Copilot or whatever help me.
I would imagine. What I read it described, and the more I use it, the more it's for me. Like, these tools is like having a lot of interns. So if you want to be able to do that, you also have to start. I feel like vindicated in some level of soft skills, or you need to find a way to delegate and to ask questions, and then they will do research for you or they give you answers, but also which are the questions and how to ask for a follow-up. And yeah, I do imagine that, I mean, developers will be strongly they will be the one that like learning and experimenting. I'm reading the success stories with using these tools, is people being able to draft new tools, or like I'm strongly a backender. Like if but before I was just almost purely Python and AI, I would still anyway be in the backend. So I hadn't developed a dynamic front end in forever. And recently, for a project, cobbled together using Bootstrap. Sorry, 15 years out of date, but that's what I still want to use it with Vue.js, and just interacting with ChatGPT. So, okay, this is what this tool will do. This is what the API is doing. How do I ask for it? How to update it? Okay, how do I add this pattern? And okay, it's ugly. It's Web 1.0 the way it looks, but yes, I develop a front end knowing what it needs to do and using, okay, I understand enough JavaScript still that I can change the code and put it into the HTML.
Mhm.
And so there is a way in which you can, and now I have a couple of mobile apps that I want to develop. And last time I tried, it was really painful for me. And now I know that I can give the boilerplate of using Flutter or even some mobile JavaScript adaptation to that, and I can describe, okay, what it wanted to do this, I change this. So it gives developer a good way to be more experimental and more daring what they're doing, because you can
Mhm.
try new things without having to spend hours reading tutorial and the how-to and the bad documentation, and the documentation is out of date, and the code examples are from 6 months ago and they changed 3 versions and things like this. It still happens, but so
So it's
like,
in the end a way to learn faster, and it's a way to experiment more easily or build MVPs quicker.
yeah, that's my impression, or POCs at least. For sure you
Mm.
want to see if it's
Yeah.
doable, and it feels. I mean, for developers, I mean, we feel, I mean, I for sure feel that it's more fun to program. I mean, the idea of getting stuck, not knowing how to do the first lines, and it feels less daunting. And I keep on reading programmers, finding it much more fun to program and try weirder things. Or you want to try in a completely different language, like I still think I will give Rust a go for another project, because now it's like, okay, so I can write it in Python and ask it to translate it to Rust and then go on from there. So like maybe I'll do that. So it's a fascinating tool. And I mean, I was actually working, I mean, exploring this morning, like, okay, what do we, I mean, in the long run, as humans, what will be the edge? And I mean, the edge is clearly not knowing the details, because the details, I mean, it has been forever that is what computers do. Like in the same way that if you were very good at doing sums, calculators kind of get you out of job. If you know what to do the sums on, then spreadsheets make you, I mean, spreadsheets didn't make accounting go away. They just make much more accounting in the world and much more accountants. So.
Yeah. But from what you say, I hear it is important for leaders to really encourage everyone in their team to play and work with different types of AIs, GPT as one of the prime examples, to get into it, to be more daring, to try more things, to have an easier access to libraries, to really make sure that your team is following and is not saying, well, AI, I never want to get into AI. It's now everyone is talking about GPT, but whatever, I stay out of it. It is something that needs to be incorporated.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, at the end, it becomes a tool. I think you need to know at least enough. Okay, I mean, I work it as a developer. I mean, it's one of my main tools, and I mean, even just to stay relevant as a natural language processing consultant and expert, I need that. So, but in general, like the skill of knowing. I mean, I still remember one of my students in December when he was like, "Okay, I asked it to the code for this, and he gave me some code. How do I know if it's correct or not?" And for me, it was like, "Well, you run it in the same way you check code from Stack Overflow, or even if you write it yourself." So, realizing how to integrate this in a process, like this is a tool. You don't have, I mean, you have to understand some of the edges, but I mean, the user fact that most of us can drive a car, we don't need to know how to fix the engine, or we need to know how to design a car. I mean, actually, probably no one single person can know how to design a car, because
well, soon again with electric cars, but not with the computers. True.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I've seen the path of my father going to be able to do everything. To like, I can change the oil, and he wasn't happy about that. So, I mean, at least knowing enough. I mean, some sort of driving license, but I mean, for working programmers, I mean, you either have a niche and you don't like learning, and I don't understand how you can do this job without being terrified, without liking to learn, or I mean, I wasn't taught neither testing nor revision control, Git, or things like this at university. Distributed system were just fancy, weird thing that no one you worked with. So, I mean, you learn new tools and models, and I mean, I still don't know exactly where these tools will be, but I mean, realizing that even just installing Copilot and you start writing something and it will fill in the boilerplate, I mean, that's already nice. On the other hand, it encourages you to do a lot of boilerplate, because now you don't have to reuse code, it will reuse it for you. So I mean, we don't have the best practices yet. They're developing. We are learning. I mean, that's fascinating with these tools. At first, there is a tool, and then they find out the edges on how to use it properly, like the way of prompting, the best way of how to build a prompt, how to constrain it. I mean, it's developing as best practices, and it's not best practice for the last 5 years. By now, it's best practice for the last 6 months, and who knows? I mean, 6 months is a bit short. So we are. So for me, people don't have to be an AI expert, but I mean, in the same way, I am really not a database expert, but at least I know enough about the different breed of database, and at least I know that I
Mm.
need to usually put things in database and not on a random text file. I sent him.
Mm. So I would summarize it in yes, it is important. Everyone should get a basic understanding. And if you want to learn, it's a perfect tool to learning. But
Mhm.
when it comes to management, it needs to also have supervision or sharing sessions, perhaps in teams to learn on how to use it the best possible way and develop some kind of best practice to know when is it the right thing to use, when is it not, how to assess the results.
Yeah, and don't think that everything should have AI inside. I mean, now it's very sexy, but
See,
I mean,
I find it interesting. Back in the day, I never used AI because I thought it was always bullshit. Now I don't use AI anywhere because I think everyone is anyways using it. So, I don't know.
yeah.
I managed to get through it without ever using it.
For
Ah,
me, it's really weird to be in a
telling me.
hype. I mean, I managed to either dodge or jump away from any hyped field apart this. But I mean, I was fascinated by AI reading Asimov when I was 11 or 12. I fell in love with After der Gödel bug when I was 18, 19. For me, the fact that now I do work with these tools and develop them, and it's great. But yeah, I mean, after ChatGPT, I got this weird Web3 moment. I mean, I was living in Lisbon at the time. I went to a AI meetup, and I was the only developer. Everybody was there trying to get the next big thing and how to get rich and whatever. And I was a bit like, that's not the meetups I'm used to go in Berlin. Like I was thinking we would be talking shop. Like what I mean, I don't know how to get rich quickly. I mean
We can
so
ask ChatGPT. So, so no worries.
yeah, we can ask. I mean like but so yeah, it's very weird to be in a super hyped field because I mean but that was I mean a joke for me in the last several I mean few years still. I mean I've been to convince client that this is it's a tool, it's not a magic wand. It still
Mm.
can't magic solutions. It's still a tool with limit. But yeah, it's it's a fun tool to check and to see the limitations
Nice.
and what it can do. And I mean, I'm really like I tend to be an optimist, though I still have the hope that it will remove a lot of useless what's the name? How it disappear? Boilerplate from test. Like when I was
Mm.
describing earlier about how to pass. I mean, it becomes useless for coding tests. I mean, I was thinking for a couple of years developing a joke app to cheat in coding tests, and someone developed it. It's called Cheetah from Cheater, I guess, and it will listen to what you say, transcribe it, and send what the questions to ChatGPT for the answers, so you can keep it on your screen and get the reply. And for me, like I expect a smart candidate to use that. So how do I ask the right question that will not work with that? And so for me, I mean, what do we learn and what do we ask people to learn? Like, when I remember in math in grad school, when they would ask you to repeat sums a lot of times, and like we have calculators, why? And so now there is a bunch of other things which. So I hope it will
Mm.
remove a bunch of useless things from the way we teach and test, and or it will be the opposite and it will be horrible and we will force people to learn to do things that they could use a computer for. I don't know.
Or I mean, I think the other part for recruiting is always this topic. Well, I've been always a big fan of not knowing things, but understanding things. So,
Hmm.
because I said, well, you can read them up,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
can learn them again, and if you have understood them before, then you have
Oh yeah.
got the synthesis out of it. And I think if someone cheats in a coding test, that might not even be bad if that person knows how to use GPT to help to solve the
Yeah.
topic. So perhaps more testing for people. How do you learn quickly? How do you evolve? And perhaps change the way we recruit or assess.
Yeah, and it's still I mean, we're still on the edge. So I mean, again, I hope it will get into some sort of utopia. I don't know. Um,
Cool. Alessandro, we're coming to the end already. Perhaps one more question. I didn't tell you that I will ask something in this direction, but
Yeah.
is there anything that was like a hard learn that you've made in the last 20 years? I would say, well, anyone else that gets into development, that gets into leadership of product teams, make sure to not do this, or please always do that.
I mean, I'm not sure it's one. I think everyone that goes from being a developer to at least a team lead or a manager is that it's much harder than it looks. Like the first few times I was giving instructions to other, I realized when I looked back, that I was doing exactly what my well-meaning technical leaders had done before. So giving instructions in a way that it was difficult for me to follow up. I got stuck. I mean, I got stuck for a week because I was too proud to admit that I didn't know what to do. Exactly that happened to me with this other person, that she had a bit of a mental breakdown. That feels very sorry. Like, oh, sorry, we're the deadline. I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't want to push you so bad. So yeah, managing other humans is difficult, and you can't. I mean, I'm repeating what I also read at the time. Until I did it, was with like, I mean, if you're a techie, the tendency is to think that doing it yourself is easier. That probably it is, but you don't scale. So there is a level in which having to learn how to delegate and ask other people to do things, and then the thing is a bit like, I mean, there is a way in which you can bring the attitude of the bug in, like understanding, okay, I asked you to do this. What did what did you understand? Would you mind repeating what I asked you to do? Okay. That seems like a good hallucination. Like, okay, let's try again. So, okay, now you understood what I want to do. And then if they're junior, like, okay, I mean, I'm a CTO, so I'm like, I would do this and this and this. Give it a try. If you do something different, it's because okay, at least know where to start. And then check intermediate and really like, hey, there is no harm in failing. Just let me know. Don't disappear for a week telling me everything is okay, and let me know the day before a demo that you got stuck and I have to just go in overdrive. So there is a way in which it becomes different, and then the more you do, there is this way in which the gap between what you know how to do, like what is completely opposite for you, for a new person, is completely like, hey, that instruction you gave me, I don't know how to do it, and you're like, okay. And then, I mean, I'm making a point. I love programming. I mean, I consider myself a born-again programmer. I mean, I didn't like it until I mean, thanks Python and a few things. I mean, after becoming a yoga teacher and deciding that I didn't want to, like, programming is great, and you solve a problem, it stays solved, it's great. It doesn't involve feelings or chakras. So I am really making a point of staying 50%, at least 20% of the time into dealing with code and solving problem. But the more you are on the manager level, the more fuzzy your understanding of actual the details. So you both deal with people that know less than you, and both know people that see a problem that for you, like, oh yeah, do this by tomorrow, and they're like, okay, what am I not seeing? Where do you feel? Where do you have a gut feeling that, oh, that could work, but could be a big problem? And so I have no big. I mean, if you read books about the techies becoming manager, this is just like, this is the standard fare. Like, oh, I've done exactly the same mistakes that other people do. Great, apparently.
Yeah, okay, no, I think it's interesting because it's in the end, the management is a lot about. Um, I hear delegation at the same time, coaching, mentoring, having an open door, a failure culture, um,
Yeah.
and supporting and understanding that just because you say something, it's not what the other person might understand or hear. Um,
Yeah.
so
And
really listening as well.
finding that, I mean, I really, I mean, the reason I went into consulting, freelancing, and doing my own things is I really hate micromanagement. Like, yeah, tell me what to do and let me lose. And then accepting that, even, I mean, finding the right amount of, I mean, but in the lucky situation that, or whatever, I mean, I work with people that tend to be senior. I mean, I realize that it's,
Yeah.
and there is a different level to work with juniors, because then really they need more. What would be horrible micromanagement for an expert person, for them is the bare minimum, so that you give them smaller
Yeah.
steps. But so finding also not knowing that people, I mean, people are different than you, and they want different styles for being helped. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm stronger believer in, like, okay, hey, give it a try. Let me know tomorrow what happened. If failure is perfectly fine. Just tell me what you learned, and but we talk tomorrow. So just allowing people to just try new things and see
Nice.
surprise you. Yeah. I
Very
mean,
nice.
if you want, my main thing is it can be fun. I mean, meetings can be fun. Talking with people can be fun, and working with others can be fun. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating when you have a deadline and you are not in control of what gets done, but it's can be really, really fascinating to work with others, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you so much, Alessandro. It has been really great chatting with you. I hope that once you manage it back to Berlin, eventually, perhaps at some point,
mhm.
to grab a coffee again.
I have to. I've
Uh,
all of my things there. I left in October, and I haven't been able to be back. I've been traveling with two backpacks since October. So
Well,
yeah.
then definitely
Cool.
come by, we grab a coffee.
Thank
And
you.
for all of the listeners, thank you so much for listening to our conversation on today's Top Tech Leaders podcast. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And then until next time, keep coding, keep leading. Thank you.
Thank you.